So today I got a friend of mine that I met recently that's going to come over and talk to us about importing in the Philippines. It's how he makes his living over here. Let's see what he does.
Subscribe now.
All right, so Dave, great to have you here. Thanks for making time to be on the channel.
Thank you, John.
So please tell us just a little bit more about yourself. Where are you from originally, and how long have you been here in the Philippines?
Okay, well, I've been in the Philippines, let's see, about 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
From the States, born and raised in Connecticut, later on moved to Arizona. Came here for a variety of reasons, but I worked a lot with Filipinos, so I came here for work originally, but loved it so much, decided to stay.
I understand. So when you were in the States, you were working with Filipinos in person there?
No, did it online.
Okay.
Was online early back in the days when they just started Google. Did a lot of online, I guess they call it digital marketing now.
Sure.
Back then we just called it online marketing.
Right, right.
And was pretty successful at that, died down a little bit. Got into Google AdWords, a variety of different things. But when I came over here, I just felt a little burnt out. Been doing it for about 20 years, so. And of course, as you know, when you work here, you got to work overnight. So just things kind of dissolved with my online business and got into the importing business.
So sounds like, at least in the past, we were doing a lot of the same things with digital marketing. What made you decide to move over to importing, what you're doing now?
Well, I kind of had a long, hard look at what I was doing after I wasn't working for a while, and I would go to a coffee shop for the day and just kind of tool around and be online and observe people. And I really thought that Filipinos, they're not impulsive buyers. And when they buy something, they're pretty loyal to the brand. You know, something like Jollibee or Colgate toothpaste or what's that bleach that everybody uses? Zone Rocks?
Yeah.
Is that the name of it? Yeah, that's all they use here. You know, you tell them to use another bleach. So I said, well, if I can import these things at a cheaper price, so you've probably heard of Alibaba, just played around on that all day.
Sure. And for those that may not know, what is Alibaba?
Alibaba is the Lazada or Shopee for importing. People from all over the world sell everything by the ton or by one or two. But obviously the more you buy, the cheaper it's going to be.
So it's really focused on more business to business, right? So somewhere like Amazon, maybe somebody, if they wanted to get something for their home or a product like that, would go to Amazon. But Alibaba is really more for perhaps other businesses that want to buy wholesale.
Absolutely, even below wholesale. It's a bit challenging at first, trying to get in touch with these people. There's a little bit of a language barrier.
Everybody's in China.
China, all over Europe, everywhere.
Sure.
You know, Turkey, Hungary, whatever. But you bring the conversation over to WhatsApp, you get on the phone, and of course, like everything else, when I first started doing it, I found my fair share of scammers. But after a while, you get to know who's who. You do a little investigating with the people that you're going to be working with, and you really have to do your due diligence because before you order anything, you know, if you're paying something like Western Union, what happens if you pay 100% to the seller and you never hear from them again?
Sure.
Because a lot of sellers will come online. They'll be on there less than a year, and then they disappear. Alibaba doesn't do a very good job of venting them.
I understand. So walk us through the very beginning. So you saw that you're here in the Philippines. You've done digital marketing for a long time. We're successful at that, but it started to get a little bit old. I'm imagining not a easy business, and 20 years is like 80 years in digital marketing, right? I could really
I'm
relate.
getting my gray hairs.
mine fell out. So you're doing better than me, but
yeah.
I understand. So
Yeah.
you thought, here's another opportunity. Filipinos are loyal to products, and maybe we could import some products that they really like. And so had you had any experience with importing before, or this was your first time?
This was my first time, but it seemed very simple. It is quite simple when you think about it. You're buying something for cheap, selling it for more money. You put it in a warehouse and put your stickers on there, and it just says 59 cents a kilo or something along those lines, and you sell it. But there is obviously the importing aspect that we all have to worry about.
And even before that, you have to think about what are you going to import. So
Sure.
How did that work for you? How did you decide what your first product was, and what was your first product, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean that's the fun part. Just trying to figure out what people need and will it sell, how much you can sell it for. The first thing I sold, I think I was mentioning this to you before, was toothpaste.
Right, right.
People love Colgate toothpaste here. That's all they tend to use. And it's kind of like when we would call in the U.S. Band-Aids. It could be another brand, but we call it Band-Aids.
Sure.
Here they call all toothpaste Colgate.
Right.
It seems to me. I mean, it could be a little different. But it was challenging in let me go back. I didn't do my research on it. I just went ahead and I know I could get it for cheaper and sell it for more. And it was cheaper than you get at the little local stores. So the mistake I made was I bought it in tubes. Whereas people want the, what do you call them, sachets?
Right,
The sachets, and I was buying them for, I don't know, for 26 grams along those lines. A little tube that you would get at a hotel.
Right.
And I was getting it for, I don't know, like 7 pesos. And the sachets, people were, they're selling them for like 13. So I said to all these shop owners, I said, well, you could sell it for the same price or even a little more because there's more toothpaste in there.
Sure.
And I'll sell it to you for a little cheaper. A few of them bought, but ultimately the consumers said,
Right. And why was that?
we want them in the sachets.
Got it.
We don't like tubes.
Sure. So the form factor was really important.
Right.
So even if the price, maybe was okay, and it sounds like they were getting more volume because it wasn't in the form factor they were used to, it was kind of a no-go.
Yeah.
So was that a big loss, or what did that look like for you?
No, it ended up being a little loss, but
Okay.
I sold a lot of it. I looked in this warehouse one day with just a ton of tubes of toothpaste. And I just said, let's just get rid of it all.
I understand. So you had to rent a warehouse here in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not too expensive.
Okay. So give us a, ballpark idea. How much did it cost to bring in toothpaste?
I think it ended up being 120,000 or something like that.
Pesos?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was for a 20-foot container.
Okay. So that's about $2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what you really need to do is take, every tube, I just say, okay, that's 20 grams. How much is 20 grams into a kilo? How many kilos in a ton? So even though it sounds like a lot or a little, depending on who you're talking to, you add 1 peso or a half a peso onto each tube of toothpaste.
Right.
That's what it's going to cost you. So when you break it down that way, that's what gets it more attractive. Everybody is usually scared off by the large price of importing and duties and taxes. And yes, it can be a lot, but if you just break it down to the most simple, you break it down to how much it's going to add on to your total cost, you're talking a peso or half a peso.
Sure. So no more toothpaste.
No,
what
never.
Did you decide to do after that?
Yeah, well, my next foray was did really well was diapers, believe it or not. And
What gave you the idea for diapers?
well, I had a baby on the way.
That's some good incentive. Yeah.
So that was my first thought process, and you could do it two ways. You could buy them from Europe, high-end brand like Pampers,
Right.
Or you could buy from China, lesser, no brand, but a lot cheaper.
Sure.
So I did my research on this one first. I went around to all these stores, and obviously you can hit 10 or 15 stores within 10 minutes.
Right.
Went with my girlfriend and we talked to these shop owners, and I said, "Do you care what brand it is?" No.
Sure.
Okay. Do you care how they're packaged? No. Okay.
Right.
What sizes do you use? Small, medium, large. Do you use pull-ups or tape?
Right.
And they said tape for small and extra small. For medium or large, we use pull-ups.
Right.
So I ordered accordingly, and I could get them for around 2.7 pesos.
Okay. So, which is a very low price. When I had my kids, I wish I could have bought those from you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now these, they weren't the best diapers in the world. The grade B, and I think about 5% were no good.
Okay.
So when we sold them, we would tell the shop owners, if there's any that are bad, just put them aside and we'll reimburse you for them.
Sure.
But 2.7, it's a lot of diapers.
Yeah.
So
And so was there a certain volume that you had to buy, or how did that work?
yeah, it's basically per container.
Okay, so you had to buy a whole container of diapers.
Right.
Okay.
But in this instance, I paid, I think it was $1,000 more for them to compress it.
Okay.
They had some machine that would just go and compress them.
Okay.
So,
So you got the most out of the container.
yeah.
So with containers, the weight doesn't matter? Or does it matter?
It does, but it's mostly what are you importing, and it is a 20 or 40 foot.
Sure. And so what did you do here? Was this a 20-foot, 40-foot container?
This was a 20 foot.
Okay, so
Yeah.
about, you remember how many diapers?
About 300,000.
Okay, that's a lot of dirty diapers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was done in Manila, but we started selling them just the old-fashioned way. Facebook groups, Facebook marketing, Facebook sponsored ads,
Yeah.
groups, Lazada, Shopee, and then I started recruiting resellers,
Okay.
and they had to do a minimum, and then I would charge them, I think it's 100 pesos a month to be part of my program, because I was getting them cheap. I mean, it's almost guaranteed income.
Sure.
So I got like 500 people to do that in a relatively short amount of time. We were charging them 100 pesos a month.
Okay.
So it's gone pretty well. And
Okay.
we're going to continue doing that, bring it over to Cebu in, I think, 3 or 4 months.
So you're in Cebu. All the diapers are in Manila. Was that a bit of a headache for you logistically, or you had staff in Manila helping out?
Staff in Manila.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you really found pretty early on, it sounds, that you didn't have to be super hands-on with selling the diapers. It sounds like, unlike a lot of businesses at the beginning, where you really have to be very hands-on and spending a ton of time, maybe it wasn't quite the case with the diapers. Is that true, or am I missing something?
No, you're right on. And another reason I picked these is they could sit in a warehouse. Probably there's no expiration on them. Not that I know of. Maybe, I mean, couple of years.
Sure.
Maybe they'll degrade or something like that. But God knows those things will sit in the ocean for
Yeah.
the next 100 years
Yes.
and still be there.
True.
So I wasn't worried about that as a factor, and the warehousing was relatively cheap. So I didn't feel like I was in a hurry.
Right.
If it was frozen goods or something along those lines. So it worked out pretty well, and we were a little bit particular even with the people that we were hiring. Well, not hiring, but that wanted to resell.
Sure.
If they just said, I want to buy one 50-pack, we would say, no, you got to buy 5, and that will allow you to be in our club, and you have to keep up, buying at least 5 packs of 50 every month, or you can't continue selling because these,
Sure.
the way that I looked at it, these people could make instant money. It's not a lot,
Right.
but you could make 500 pesos in half a day. Now, is that a lot? No. But if you could continue to do that and feed
Sure.
those people, all of a sudden, we've talked about this before, the recurring income.
Yes.
They're going to want more and more and more.
Yes.
So,
So the people that were reselling, how'd you find those guys?
online,
Okay.
Facebook.
Okay. So Facebook really rules the Philippines, I think, with
It
any kind
does.
of communication, and this as well.
It does.
Right.
Those, especially the groups, you find the 25 surrounding cities, let's say Makati,
Yeah.
and there'll be 4 or 5 different groups of people in Makati. And there's a lot of spam in there, of course, people
Sure.
just selling junk. But you're just saying, guaranteed income.
Yeah.
And there was just no fluff when people would message us. We would have an autoresponder
Yep.
that says you're going to be selling diapers. This is how much they are. If you're interested, we're at this address. Here's our WhatsApp number. Just be prepared to come down and get them.
Sure.
What are you going to talk about when your people are selling those? Besides, do you want to sell them or not?
Right. Right.
There's not much go between in it.
Yeah, so it's really like recruiting for any other type of business, but it was really finding salespeople willing to buy the product and then not just resell them one time, but really commit to selling them consistently.
Right.
Yeah,
And
very smart.
what I found out, there was a lot of people without stores. They just would sell them out of their house or to their neighbors.
Yeah.
Because what amazes me is, what originally brought me to this whole thing is my wife's sisters and brothers, they would just go out and buy 1 diaper, 2 diapers a day, and they're 11 or 12 pesos.
Right.
And they would do this every single day. So I said, okay. Well, if we can get them cheaper, then we're golden. So
Yeah, very, very, very smart. So how long did it take, or are you still selling that container of diapers?
it took about 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah,
To sell about 300,000? What
Yeah.
was the number?
300,000.
I mean, that's incredible if you think about that.
It is, but remember, they're all in 50 packs.
Sure.
So divide that by 50. I don't know what that figure is. Maybe 60,000 or something like
There's
that.
a 6 in there.
Or 600. I forget what the number
Yeah,
is.
maybe 600. But still, that's about 100,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's an impressive number, especially for first time, buying a whole container full of something like that. What'd you put the success of that to, other than your smarts, obviously, but you figured out something pretty quickly there.
Well, I'm not trying to be cocky here, but it's pretty simple. You're giving people something they need, and it fit the criteria of you could sell it on Facebook, you could sell it on Lazada. Now, Lazada and Shopee, they're not doing gangbusters, but they're doing okay.
Sure.
I don't really get the SEO aspect of search engine optimization of Lazada and Shopee, how people get to the top, but we've got some of the cheapest diapers on there. But there's and this is kind of important too when you're talking about importing, is I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but Lazada and Shopee, you can filter by who has the most sales. So I look up diapers, then I hit top sales. And you'll see everybody who's really doing well. And it will say how much they sold last month.
Right.
So you go, that's it right there.
Sure.
If I have basically the same product and I sell cheaper, they're gonna buy mine.
Yes.
They just have to find me.
Yes.
And you can do sponsored ads there, but that can be a little expensive. I haven't gone that route, but
Sure.
I would expect that you could do that number in about a month on Shopee and Lazada if you really were up there.
Okay. And just for those watching, Lazada, Shopee is like Amazon or Etsy or eBay, really marketplaces where people can buy and sell products here in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So do you feel that trying to scale a business like this on Lazada or Shopee or other online marketplaces is the way to grow a business like this, or having resellers like you do, or both?
I really think it depends on the product.
Okay.
I've never been too interested in I call them tchotchkes. I think that's a Jewish word for just little things or something like that. But a tripod stand.
Sure.
You could probably get them for 1/5 of the price you'd be paying here.
Right.
But how many tripod stands are you going to sell?
Sure.
But a lot of people just make the mistake of saying, I could get them so cheap, I'm going to buy 500 of them.
Sure. Because I will find people here, they'll maybe look at things like, phone chargers or battery packs, things like that. Does that kind of fall into the tchotchke brand?
Yeah, and saturated.
Okay.
Saturated. Just,
Sure.
what's your phone charger? Why is it better than my phone charger?
Sure.
And what's your unique proposition of selling it? Are you that much cheaper and it's a brand name? Well,
right.
In this case, if it's a brand name, maybe it's fake.
Sure. So the interesting thing, I'm sure, is kind of knowing your audience as well. It sounds like in the Philippines, you knew that people wanted diapers and they didn't really care about the brand. If you were selling these in the U.S., maybe you would have thought of Pampers or
yeah.
Okay.
That's my next long-term goals is the Amazon drop shipping program is just shipping stuff directly to Amazon.
Right.
They do all the shipping for you. I mean, you could do very, very well. You take a product like we discussed this the other day, but I'm again going off a little bit of a tangent. But food equipment like a pizza oven.
Right.
The brand name Oni, I think they're called, about 26,000 pesos.
Yeah.
I can get one for about 9 or 10. And there will be people who don't want to buy one for 25,000.
Sure.
Is it lesser quality? Absolutely. But they're not going to be using it every day.
Sure.
So you can, almost anything you think of, you can get cheaper. Anything. But there is that downside to it that you have to buy a lot to really make money.
Right. And buying a lot of unis or, pizza ovens are going to cost a lot more than toothpaste, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. So as you've been more successful with this, does it make you think, well, maybe I'll invest in, higher price items, or are you still really sticking to what do people need here in the Philippines?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I'm all in. I'm just reinvesting everything I make into this, just because I think you can really blow it out with different products. But eventually, you just can look on Shopee and just anything you can imagine. I think I mentioned this to you was baby formula. Nido baby formula you can get for 85 pesos for 2 kilos. It's the real thing, not fake, from Europe. Expires in about a year and a half. And on Shopee, they're selling it for 2,000.
Right.
Now, when I say 80, that's not including importing and everything, but
sure.
You could really, about 25% of what you're paying will be gobbled up with taxes. And so if something costs 100 pesos, add on 20 pesos to that, or 25.
Sure.
And that will be your total cost.
Okay.
But anything your mind can think of on Shopee, you can even start. I guess if you were going to start small, you can talk to a lot of these owners on Alibaba and just say, I'm just getting going on this business. I want to buy 100 kilos of something, or 50 kilos, or 50 samples. But just make sure that you can get your money back.
Right.
And most products, you're going to make your money back at least.
Right.
Because they are so cheap.
Sure. So say that somebody's watching now and saying, this is kind of interesting. Hadn't had that idea. Obviously thinking through the right product is important. But you mentioned other things like customs or shipping. What are the other things that people need to think through with this type of business?
Well, we're using a broker to import, but the reason we're using a broker is because we're going to be importing a lot of things from Europe,
Okay.
Which include frozen products like cheese or meat. So that gets a little more complicated.
Okay.
Things like liquor or meat, anything frozen, it gets very complicated and expensive.
And why is that?
Well, I guess because, when you're talking food, could have some kind of flu or virus in it.
Sure.
And they're a little more particular about that, of course.
So countries just wanting to make sure that what enters the borders is healthy, safe, those type of issues?
Yeah, and, there's no question. I mean, that's very important, but I would be doing my due diligence when I bring things in here, too.
Of course.
Because I have to take a vested interest. I want to sell it, and it better be good.
Yeah.
But for the most part, where the easy importing comes from is China. You don't need a broker for that. You can pay what's called CBM. I forget what that stands for. Cubic metric something. But each one of those is about 7,000 pesos.
Okay.
And how big is that? Well, this desk would be about, it would be folded up, but about probably less than one. I'm just guesstimating here, but it would probably cost you about 5,000 or 6,000 pesos to bring this desk in.
Right.
And it flies through customs when they're from China. And it's hard goods like this. They have no reason to investigate. You're not buying that many, so, wave it on through, no problem.
Sure. But when it's food, not so easy. They're not going to necessarily wave it through.
Right.
Okay. So what attracts you to food? If it's more complicated, why not just make your life easier? What attracts you to something like food?
What do Filipinos love?
For sure food.
Yeah.
I understand. So it's really just knowing your market here.
Chicken and pork.
Yes.
Yeah, chicken and pork all day long.
For sure. Okay, so that's really what motivates you.
Yeah.
It's a bit more of a pain in the neck, at least at first, but that's what your target buyers want.
Yeah, and it's really, I'm not trying to act like I'm Robin Hood here, but helping people out who might not be able to necessarily afford things. One of the things I want to do is go to my girlfriend's family lives on an island. They just got their electricity back on about 3 weeks ago.
Back from the typhoon.
Yes.
Literally the typhoon a year ago, and they just got it back.
They just got it back, but I want to help them out, both with selling and, I'm going to tell them if I could buy something for 60 pesos a kilo, whether it be chicken or pork, and normally you could probably sell it for 170 or 80. Just tell them to sell it for 120 to the locals. They'll make money. You'll be able to feed more people, that kind of thing. But yeah, the sky's the limit with food. You can buy everything from suckling pigs, which is will make really tasty lechon, even better than the big ones.
Right.
You buy the little ones. There's a Spanish name for, I forget what they call them, cochinas or something. They're just made in the oven, but you can get those for 900 pesos a ton.
Wow.
Which works out to I forget how much it is. It ends up being 90 pesos a kilo.
Which is just incredibly cheap.
And each one is like 6 kilos. That means you figure it out.
About $12. $11, $12.
Yeah.
So that's, for something
ridiculously
that's
cheap.
amazing.
And something like that, why it's so attractive, yes, of course, making the money, but it could lead into so many different areas. Do you want to start a catering business with that as your centerpiece and then do the lumpia and
Yeah.
pancit and all that. You can do numerous things with that. And do you want to start your own manok business, or that's
Sure.
chicken? But it could just go in so many different directions.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I understand. So the very interesting thing to me, hearing some of the prices that you mentioned is they're just incredibly cheaper than you could get here in the Philippines.
Right.
I think a lot of people think it's a developing country here, everything must be cheap.
Yeah.
But when it comes to especially brand name kind of items, they're much more expensive than the
Yeah.
US. But also food, good cheese, good meat, a lot of those type of things, good fruit, just incredibly
Sure.
expensive
Sure.
over here. I've bought, just very small, containers of things like blackberries or just a
Strawberries,
nectarine,
yeah.
or it could be $10 for, just a very small amount of imported fruit and, things like that here, which, when you look at the average salaries here, it's people might have to work for, 2 days to be able to, buy a nectarine or two. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's ridiculous, but just importing in general, you just want to find something that people. Everything is cheaper that you can think of. There's a refrigerator you have in the corner here. I don't know what brand that is. Maybe that's a high-end brand or not, but I bet I could get that for a third of the price that you did.
Sure.
And then you buy one. There's a sample, which you can do. If it's decent enough quality, go out and buy 10 or 15. Furniture, regular furniture that you would buy at Unitop. You wonder how Unitop sells things so cheaply. I could show you a few places in China that are selling at ridiculous prices. I see things in China that are 5,000, 6,000 pesos, and here at Mandawi Foam that are charging 20,000.
Right.
And most of this stuff even though it's large to import, it's not that heavy. Most of them.
Sure.
So it's not that expensive to import.
Sure.
But really, I would like my whole. If I could work out my whole life, I'm like, okay, well, I'm moving into a new house. Let me buy a lot of furniture, and then whatever I'm not using, just sell it.
Yes.
Anything. I'm going to buy a refrigerator. Let me buy 5 of them, and I'll sell 4 of them.
Right, and it'll more than pay for what you want to keep.
Right.
Yeah, very interesting.
Right.
So it seems that your strategy was, especially at first, you weren't afraid to not make too much off of each item as long as you were selling in big volumes. Do you think you could also lose big that way as well if you didn't have a good way to sell things? Or do you think as long as the price is low enough, you're generally going to be okay?
Both. I think if the price is low enough, you're going to be okay, but you just have to think about the product.
Sure.
We just mentioned a refrigerator. Well, a refrigerator, if you put a low enough price, it might sell today, but even with a low price, it might take 2 months.
Sure.
And Filipinos like to bargain when you're talking on the phone. Like, you're selling it for 8,000. Well, what's your final price? Well,
Sure.
no, this is the final price.
Right.
You're not going to be doing that with diapers. You're not going to be doing that with meat.
Sure.
So I don't want anything where people are haggling or they have to make a decision to buy. It's put on the table, do you want to buy this or do you not? And if it passes that test, then I think you're okay. When I mentioned something like baby formula, here it is. Do you want to buy it or not?
Right.
And yes, they might try to haggle on that price, but no, this is an incredible price you're getting. Do you want it or not?
Yeah.
So, and I let other people, I don't want to get involved in any of that, of course.
Sure.
I let other people do that for me.
Right. That's your resellers or others on your team?
Well, at first when we just started selling diapers, we were just, I think we still have a couple ads up there just selling them directly to the public, which ultimately can make you a lot more money instead of resellers or selling on Lazada or Shopee or whatever. But I've told the people I'm working with, no haggling. No haggling. This is the price.
Right.
It's super cheap, and If they want to buy it, they set up the pickup. They call Maxim and set it up. That whole Maxim and where is he and all that, they set it up.
All the delivery service locally, they're taking care of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or come down and pick it up.
Sure.
Right at the warehouse.
So you mentioned before that you got a broker. Can you tell us a little bit more? What does a broker do, and how can you be sure if you find a good one or not?
They do everything, the whole importing process, and you're not going to really need one at all. Okay. There's brokerage companies, Cargo Boss. If people want to look that up, that's one that comes to mind.
Okay.
You're just messaging them on Facebook. You tell them where you're going to, what you want to buy, what the weight is, what the dimensions are, and they're going to give you a price. It's really as simple as that. It's like buying something on Lazada or Shopee. Whereas when we talk about, what I'm trying to accomplish, eventually buying meat and cheeses and things like that, it's a lot more complicated.
I understand.
But yeah, if you're buying from China, easy peasy. You're not hiring a broker per se. You're hiring a company to do it for you.
Right.
And they're flying and shipping 10 or 15 times a day. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but many times a day.
Very good. So for those wanting to learn more, any resources you'd recommend?
A laptop or a cell phone and playing on Alibaba.
Okay.
Yes, of course there's videos on YouTube.
Sure.
A lot of them in Tagalog and Bisaya. If you just look up importing into the Philippines, Alibaba, Philippines, you'll get plenty of searches. But again, a lot of those are just, they're talking about, well, I bought 5 lamps. Right. And a lot of people do customization. They'll buy a shirt. Yep. And they'll make it their own brand.
Sure.
And they're working with some fabric company. Too much.
Sure. Sure. So you could really make it as complicated or uncomplicated as you want, it sounds like.
Right.
I get it.
But again, if you have a big business and you're wanting to start your own brand, and branding is important by all means, but you're not going to start out that way, of course.
I get it. Well, everything you've shared has been super helpful, but I'm curious, anything else that you would want to say, people considering this, or perhaps anything we haven't talked about so far that you think is important for people to know?
Nothing in particular. Just if it interests you, take the leap of faith and go on and buy a sample. You can negotiate with sellers. It'll say, if I'm getting something for a pizza oven for 8,000 pesos, their sample price might be 12,000. Say, listen, I'm very interested in this. I want it for 8.
Right.
And they'll say, okay, but if you go ahead with an order next time, we're going to have to charge you 10 for, so we'll add 2,000 onto your invoice when you buy a lot of them.
Right.
But even when you're doing personal shopping, you can sometimes get ridiculously good prices.
Sure.
So take the leap of faith. If you need something in your house and you think it'll sell, buy a refrigerator. If it's a refrigerator, go ahead and buy it. Yeah. If you and sell it used, you're still going to make more money.
Sure.
So yeah, go ahead and do it, and then look up. Just look up importers on import from China on Facebook or YouTube, and you'll just get all the local ones. And then if you look it up on Facebook with their advertising, you're going to see that ad all over the place on the sponsored ads.
Sure. Very good. Well, Dave, this has been super interesting. I know people like myself are going to learn a ton from this, so really appreciate you making the time to talk to us.
Absolutely. No problem, John.
Very good.
All right.
Well, guys, big thanks to Dave. Appreciate you guys watching as well. If you have any questions, leave some comments below. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Take care.